So thank you all for joining us today. We're very excited to be welcoming a very special guest today, Carlos Segura, for a virtual talk called Show Who You Are. But before we kick this off, for those of you that are unaware of who we are, the Chicago Graphic Design Club, we are a design community focused on discussing the theory, craft, and practice of graphic design, not just in Chicago, but also beyond. We're approaching our 2-year anniversary, May 6th. And really, we started as an organization right in the beginning of the pandemic as a way to discuss design books. But over the course of, the past 2 years or so, we've been extending a lot of the stuff that we do and doing a good amount of talks, lectures, workshops. We're still doing book discussions. And we pretty much just exist as a community to give people an outlet to be inspired and to meet with other designers. Where our doors are always open. So if anyone either in Chicago or outside of Chicago, if anyone is ever interested in getting involved, we are a volunteer-led organization. So if you or someone you know is interested in volunteering or bouncing ideas off of us, like I said, our doors are always open. You can shoot us a message on Instagram, or you could also email us at the email that you see here. And when we're not doing events like this, we have a design community, a Slack community that's free to join. And it's pretty much a virtual space where designers, creatives, students, enthusiasts, professionals, and everyone in between get a chance to talk about design. You could register for this on our website. There is a link right on our homepage. So if you want to make new friends or just meet other designers or ask any questions, this is a place to do it. And we have 2 wonderful events coming up. So this Saturday, we are going to be touring the studio Starshape Press. We are going to be doing a workshop and a tour. Tickets are still available. I believe there's not too many left, but it's this Saturday. It's in person from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And if you want to register for this, you could do so on our websites as well. And then next month, May 12th, which is a Thursday at 6 p.m. Central, we are going to be having a book discussion around the book, Ways of Sane. If you haven't had a chance to come to one of our book clubs, they're pretty interesting. We get pretty interesting crowd, professionals, designers, students, and we just nerd out about graphic design and visual communication. It's pretty neat. But with that said, we're super excited to be welcoming Carlos Segura, who is, in my opinion, a Chicago design icon. I remember learning about him when I was in college, and it's such a pleasure to be, providing this space today to learn from him. He is the founder of the design firm Segura Inc., which he founded in 1991. And in addition, in 1994, he founded T26, which is a type foundry. You can learn more about that at t26.com. And in 2004, he launched CarType, a publication and an outlet for all things typography. This is his Instagram handle that you see here below. So you're more than welcome to give him a follow and see all the things that he's up to. There is going to be time for a Q&A at the end. And I know in the events, we said that we had a hard stop, but we might be going over. So if anyone has any questions, there's going to be time for those questions. So feel free to drop them in the chats, or once we open up for Q&A, you could always unmute yourself and ask the question directly. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to hand it over to you, Carlos.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to share my screen now real quick here. Okay. Well, hello, guys. Thanks for coming. Hold on, let me see. I got this. There we go. Thank you so much for coming. I am very, very grateful to Chris on this. It's really nice to be talking to people. I mean, I've been stuck in my office for years now. Also, I'm a one-man shop, so I don't really get to collaborate with a lot of people. This little talk today is kind of apropos and timely because as you saw in the post that Chris did for this talk, there's a mention of a podcast I did with Chris Dole called The Future a few weeks ago. And it was a very touching, emotional, and beautiful conversation about finding who you are as I was growing up and trying to find myself in my career and my life, as we all have to do. And then the other thing that was really timely was I just saw the documentary about Kanye West called Yeehaws, which I understand is pronounced genius, even though it's spelled Jeenyuhs. And it totally changed my opinion of Kanye. I was just astonished how hard he worked to find himself and educate himself and develop his brand. And of course, as you saw in one of the invitations on Instagram, Chris posted one of my business cards, which is part of a branding that I do for myself. That's also part of my contract. That's also discussed in the future podcast with Chris, though I would urge you to listen to it. Some of you may already have, but it's very, very close to my theory of finding your voice in life in general, and certainly in graphic design. My family has lost everything 4 different generations. I'm part Lebanese, part French, part Spanish from Barcelona, and part Cuban, which is where I was born. In fact, the reason why I was born in Cuba is because my family fled the Franco regime in Barcelona during World War II. And that's where I was born. And then, of course, I came to Miami. This logo that you see, as a matter of fact, is a logo that my grandfather had. He used to have a department store in Barcelona that was taken away from him and then opened this little tiny store. There's a picture in Cuba, and lost that as well, obviously. I got a hold of some information and found that he had the exclusivity for maiden form bras in Cuba. And that's how we survived until we left. We were able to sneak out an ad for the store. And when I saw that logo, I realized I've got to carry it forward. And that's the logo that I've been using for some time now, which is our family logo going way back, as you see here. So basically, I will not take on a project that I don't think will be more satisfying emotionally than financially. Because people buy not what you do, they buy why you do it. Really great quote by Jeff here. And for me, I find that most companies end up gaining the personality of their sector instead of the personality of their brand. And this is the single most important focus of each and every project that I try to correct, because I try to look at everything from many different angles, and then soon you'll have an angle of your own. It's pretty easy to do cool, but it's better to do cool and smart. So what you are and what you do has to have meaning. And every single thing you're going to see here today is unconventional in some way and is born from the strategy and the mindset of being unique. The first case history I'll show you is one that we did for T26. And I label it as branding, but branding to me isn't about a logo or a design, it's about a personality. And so every single project's branding, quote unquote, comes from the goal of what we wanted the company to be. When we founded T26, we were one of the first type foundries to digitize fonts, and probably the first or second to sell. Yes. I'm sorry? Everything okay?
Yeah, I think someone went off mute. So
Oh, okay, no problem. So we were developing a look and feel for T26. We were probably one of the first or second type foundries that sold typography on the web. And the branding that we chose to do was to follow the Fluxus movement from the 50s and the 60s, where we created promotional materials in the form of gifts instead of marketing. And we created these very limited edition pieces that we produced every time we had a new collection of fonts and never produced them again. And they were all free as long as you called for them. We would ship them to you. And we continued to create an incredible amount of content, both in letterpress, linoleum cuts, offset, silk screen, all kinds of materials that we would produce, clothing, all kinds of stuff. And this is what gave this company such an incredible brand, because we were kind of like, first of all, it was created by graphic designers, and we were developing the tools that we used ourselves as graphic designers, but we did it through typography. And we wanted the materials to be as, eye-catching and beautiful and cohesive as we could, because we knew that that's what we liked also. So we would create all these kinds of pieces that were not only fonts, but EPS sets and all kinds of materials. This is a second type of branding that I think is really interesting, and a service that we do through T26. In this case, Jack Daniels had hired us to design all of the fonts that were on their label that they've been using for 130 years. And their branding was through typography. So this type of branding this took almost 2.5 years to do. We drew every character. They did not exist. The only characters that exist were the ones that were on the whiskey label. So we completed this set of fonts for Jack Daniels, which they now use for their branding. This branding was born out of the size of the product. When we launched 5inch.com, we realized that the actual product is 5 inches wide. So that's what the branding was born. And this was a company that created CDs and DVDs that were blank, that followed the swatch concept, where we would produce a bunch of designs, and when they ran out, we would never produce them again. This is a little bit deeper dive into a brand, a condition of a brand, but also, and more importantly, is my conditions on how to fix it. So initially, when Corvus came to us, they had this logo, and they had these catalogs back in the day when stock photography. This stack of books, every single one of these books is from a different company, and Corvus wanted us to do another one like this, and we turned it down because we weren't interested in doing another one of these. So we said we would do it on the condition that we would be able to drive the personality of the company, and began by doing this logo, and then developed the language of the company around this logo by launching it with a series called Crop. Crop was one of those pieces that it was a coffee table book the size of posters. It was an enormous 24 by 36 collection of images. And we broke every possible rule you can imagine of the time with regard to stock photography. Back then, all stock photography was just a book of thumbnails and no personality. We created pieces that were reflective of the time. For example, this is a collection of images from the 30s and 40s, and we detailed it even down to the type of paper that you would print it on. So you would imagine seeing this piece in the 1940s. We actually searched for and got new old stock newsprint paper from the 40s. And it smelled old, even though it was new. And then we continued to produce these pieces that featured photographers that risked their life every day to give us the imagery that we see on the news every night. We did it in the form of respect, like portfolios. And we created these storylines of imagery for this brand that eventually became, just in a matter of 6 months, the largest stock photography company in the world. This piece was a letterpress collection of imagery, and it was to promote photographers that were now, you could hire these photographers for your own project. This project was for PlayStation. And we continued to do all these really, unique packaging and messaging and just beautiful collections of imagery. Some were a little bit more risque than others, but we had a lot of fun. For example, this one, the ladders, you climb up the corporate ladder, and in this tribe in Africa, the higher your neck is, the more important you are. Storylines were also born out of pieces like this one. For example, as we all know, Chicago is the #1 murder capital of the United States. And when we got this assignment, we were being asked to create a book of imagery that Corbis had that collected all of the moments that have shaped our world. And at that moment, there was a newscast on TV where there had been a drive-by shooting where this brother and sister were playing PlayStation on their TV, and they sprayed their wall, and one of the bullets hit the little boy in the head, and his brain splattered all over the TV. And the little girl was being asked on the news, "Oh my God, what happened?" Blah, blah, blah. And she just shut down, and the only words that came out of her mouth were, and our world just turned around at that time. So we use this line to showcase the moments around the world that have been shaping us, like Tiananmen Square and 9/11, and there were 100 others. Very important piece that we did for them. We also decided to define a specific moment in the history of sports when Corbis bought the Sports Illustrated collection, and we created a series of sports pieces that we wanted to have more of a special moment feel instead of a sports kind of thing. It's very, very, very hard to explain in this kind of like quick draw kind of recap here, but it was a really pretty special moment. Then we moved on, and we were asked to do a special piece for Corbis in Japan, and we featured these pieces that create the feature art from Japan from the 11th century and on. It's a very, very beautiful piece, and the printing was just unbelievably complicated. We silk screened and offset pieces on double clear pieces of paper. It was just a beautiful, beautiful project, and that got us the Red Dot Award 2 years in a row. So this is a very quick also recap of the development of a brand. So similar to WeWork, Room is a space where hairdressers, stylists, beauty salons, and general fashion-related businesses can all be in one central space, and they're all supported by a global brand positioning, like a franchise-like marketing and community-based experience. So we presented 3 different options for them. The first one was actually all 3 in this case were based on a tagline that a positioning statement, and what we did is we called it Lifestyled. The very first one was a Euro direction, and this is the branding that we developed for them, all under the Lifestyled moniker and positioning line. And then followed by more of a fashion kind of design language. Again, with the same Lifestyle tagline. And then the third one is more of a graphic tech kind of thing, and also embracing the different size spaces that you could rent or lease. And this became their business card and their branding. This is a very simple one, and that was born out of, this is a research development company in California, and they were such fans of our contract and my way of being able to turn down projects that I don't want to work on. He really liked the ability that I have to say no to projects, and he wanted to do more of that. So I was able to incorporate this quote unquote no branding, but the name of the company is Nelson Cash. And he absolutely loved this hidden message in the logo. And these are their cards. This was another really interesting brand that was born out of the venue. This was designed for Sam, which is one of the largest, most successful comic book representatives in the business. And he has his own line of comic books, but he also represents Alex Ross, which is one of the most famous comic book artists in the world. And he needed something that would break through the Comic-Con conference in San Francisco. So this is the branding that we developed for them. He then hired me to rebrand Alex Ross, and we took the opportunity to develop the brand around the actual moniker of the storytelling, which is the little frames. So we did this 3D printed catalog that took the little frames and made it into his brand. And then this is part of his stationery. This is the backs of their letterhead. And these are the envelopes and the flaps, business cards, and a few more collateral pieces. These are some of the pieces for Alex Ross's Comic-Con. And he showcased some of the Star Wars art that he did. And then he did this very special piece that was previewed at the in Las Vegas. First time John, Paul, George, and Ringo had unified and created one piece to celebrate the Yellow Submarine's anniversary. So we did these beautiful pieces that created or included all the original art, original sketches, and all that kind of stuff for the Yellow Submarine. This piece, this branding was a unique challenge for me because obviously we all know Harley Davidson already has amazing branding, but the branding for this book took shape in the form of the historical story. So created this beautiful storyline that was more designed around older book design style. And we took the story of Harley from the very beginning until the 35th anniversary point, which is when this was done, or 65th anniversary, I'm sorry. And it was a beautiful collection of a bunch of, their historical images. This is a really interesting story too, because we were in the process of developing the brand and the design for all of the rock shocks for RockShox. And while we were in the process of developing the look and feel and design for all these shocks, we developed some, we came across some findings that there were a lot of brands that were coming from China that were trying to copy the work that SRAM had developed. SRAM is the company that owns RockShox, and they're the ones that invented the front suspension system for bicycles. So what we were doing is we came up to this roadblock where we were finding we've got to reposition this brand. So after we designed all of these shocks, they hired us to develop a positioning statement for the brand. And we came up with "The Earth is not flat." They loved this so much that they asked us to implement this line into a physical catalog that would announce the entire new line in Las Vegas. So we developed it into a topography book, which took the shapes of the mountains landscape in Arizona, where they test all the shocks, and developed this 3D multi-level embossed multi-cut pages for their catalog. And this became the hit of the event. And it was just an incredible success for them. This brand came about because of the time frame. SRAM hired us to design a book to celebrate their 25th anniversary. So we changed this brand to simply be this. And then we created these books for them that archived and showcased their entire history from the very beginning. It was a one-year opportunity, and it had to be done this year. It wouldn't have worked any other year. This branding was born out of the usage of the product. And this was a collection of images that was only licensed to put on items like plates, forks, lamps, fabrics, and so on and so forth. So we laser die cut the cover to reflect that usability. this brand was born out of the sector. In this case, this is for a printer, so we played off this register marks, and the logo is for classic color, and we made it as simple as possible while giving it a very unique personality, and trying to make it as, you know, it's a very difficult thing to print, but also proving that because you can do it, you're really, really good at it. So we did these really beautiful pieces for them. The brand you're about to see now was born out of a name change. And the name that we changed it to was, they initially were called Graphical Multimedia, and we were instrumental in getting them to change their name to Yosho. And we did it like this because Yosho is a programming company, and because programming is its own language, we did the letter forms out of slightly trimmed numbers. Yosho means it is good, and the Y means yearning for something above. And so we developed this branding that encompassed and embraced their Japanese heritage. And this was the poster that was put all over California to announce the brand as a teaser. These are some pieces that we did. Even the color scheme was used to showcase all of the behind the scenes realities that like we used their technology all the time without even knowing it. So the color scheme on the helmet and on the shorts and on the tennis court, it's there, but you don't see it. And this is their stationery. This was a really interesting project we just finished about a year ago, where they wanted to redo their branding, unify. These are their 3 previous logos. They're a really cool company that makes the most amazing displays and events. So we started by build them up, and then developed their brand to simplify it like this. It's called Britain. And we created some really wonderful positioning lines. And these lines were born out of the incredible family unit that this company has. Everybody is just all for one, for sure, in this company. So we wrote all these beautiful positioning lines for all their advertising. They create the most amazing concert venues. For example, this one is for the Aerosmith concert. And our recommendation was to, every time they would do a piece, they would do a follow-up archival catalog that would document the process of all the things that they built for this venue. So these are some of the pieces that we showcase, excuse me, for each of the venues that they would do. This was a show on these photographs. And this was a piece we did for them that's called Piazza Pod Park. And the branding was born out of the fact that this company called Box Pop creates these beautiful structures out of shipping containers. This is one of the pieces that they did. And this is their place in Wisconsin, which we wrapped with all of the brands. This brand I'm going to share with you really quickly, because this was an interesting, and I talk about this on the future podcast. I initially turned this project down many, many times, mostly because I know how I am, and I know how the health sector is as well. And at least for me, I feel like they have so many rules that I didn't feel like I could spread my wings. So out of respect, I turned the project down. The client was absolutely amazing. He said, you know, I don't want you to do what other people do. I want you to do what you do. So eventually we came to an agreement. I said, you know, I'll show you an idea. If you like it, fine. If you don't like it, fine. So I showed him this branding for Illuminate Healthcare. We started by launching the Illuminate website, which is a healthcare place they have in Chicago. And it was so successful for them that he was just so happy that he then hired me to develop another brand. And my message to him was he initially wanted me to do something I really wasn't feeling comfortable about, But I basically told him to embrace your difference, because what you don't do is often more important, valuable, and telling than what you habitually do. So what he wanted us to do is basically just tout all of the things that he does as healthcare. And I said, well, that's not going to be any different than what everybody else does because everybody says the same thing. So I told him to do this book, which is We Don't. And the very first spread of the book was this. And it was just a beautiful presentation of all the things that they don't do that means something. We don't talk, we do, we don't try, we triumph, and so on and so forth. There was a bunch of pieces in the catalog. That became so successful, they got the investors, and then they launched a new brand called Skilled, which they initially wanted to spell out. I talked them into doing it like this, and this is what it became. Skilled became Skilled and Skilled Plus. The Skilled Plus is a higher end service, and it's in black, and then the regular Skilled is in white. And then we did these beautiful, naturally photographed senior citizens instead of these, perfectly photographed people that you never see. These are some of the pieces that we did. When he hired me to do this book, he wanted me to write do a promo piece for a service that they were launching. And at the time, my mom was dying of cancer. And all these lines were born from her struggle. I don't want my mother taken care of by a system. I want her taken care of by a human. She remembers her song, but she doesn't remember me. My father fought for us, but now he has his own battle. And she's been on many trips, but now she's on a new path. This additional piece that you're going to see now is the Skilled Memory Care brochure, which speaks about the devastating issue of Alzheimer's disease. But it touches on very visually as it highlights the slow fade by showcasing a family member as she becomes less and less recognizable. There's a human before you, you just don't know who it is. So if you'll just for a second keep an eye on the image on the right, I never thought in a million years that he would produce this piece. And this is all it is. Just keep your look at the image on the right. It keeps fading away. And in this case, obviously, the branding was born out of the problem we were trying to address. It's the most important thing to remember: skilled memory care. We then, lastly, did an additional piece for them called Skilled Continued Care, which is a long-term care service. And I wanted to market and promote this as an ongoing story of a lifetime. So when there's a story that's told that remains full of promise, it doesn't end in a period. It ends in, the 3 dots. So this branding was a simple extension of the brand. Seems to be stuck here. Hold on. There it is. And that's all it is for Skilled. Now we go to a really interesting story. This was a comic book project that we got from DC Comics. And the artist wanted to hire us on the condition that we wouldn't make the comic books look like comic books. And it was called The Filth. And these are the series that we got. Grant Morrison would send us a letter, a title every month, and we would design a cover every month. The first one was Us Versus Them, Perfect Victim, Structures and Ultra Structures, Shit Happens, Zero Democracy, A Very English Nervous Breakdown. Initially, it was going to be done a 1-year limited edition, but it was so successful, they extended it for a 2nd year and then hired us to do these sleeves for them, where all the comic books would fit into these. This branding was born out of the high-end product that they sold. These were extremely expensive high-end tea importers from Asia. So we did these business cards with engravings and letterpress, and they looked like little tea strainers, and they were in 30 different languages. DEP is a brand that was born out of the actual service that they provide, which is pool cleaning. And the logo takes the shape of the depth of the pool. And we just simply took advantage of the shapes of all the pools that he cleans and made them into a really graphic exploration for them. AHA is a project that is done to promote image security and touches on the subjects that we're all addicted to, image obsession and so on and so forth. And we did these series of posters and promotional imagery pieces for them to promote their message on positivity. And then this one was originally intended to be a simple 10th anniversary invitation for a company in Barcelona, but it took the shape of celebrating the struggle of a company for your first 10 years. And we developed all these saying that, you know, the first year you struggle, the second year you try, the third you stumble, refine, tackle, think, target, focus, achieve, and then on the 10th year you celebrate. We did a lot of augmented reality for this project. It was really, really interesting. A lot of the stuff is on my website. I couldn't possibly show you everything here, but these are just a few little details. And we did a lot of animations for their 10th anniversary party as well. No Comply is a really interesting brand that was born out of their desire to not comply to the standards of the industry. This is a search engine enhancement that makes Google searches return better returns. And so look at the left side where the C just goes back, and that became their brand. And then this just goes into a search box, and that's it. This was another brand that we just finished, which is for Factor. Factor is actually a data resource, and it's a website with data resource stats and win predictions for League of Legends. And the brand was actually born out of research of a factor tree. It doesn't always take the shape of an F, but in this case it did. And it's a very important mathematical process. So that's what gave birth to the logo. That Costs Money was born out of the actual struggle that this division has, which is a nonprofit organization. So this organization is an organization that helps nonprofit organizations. And the saying is, you know, everything costs money. So all the things that you need to do, everything that costs money. So their struggle is always trying to get money to help. This branding was born out of it was done for the Chicago STA 100 show. And I developed the message of the importance of one person, because they only pick 100 people. So be someone, be one of the 100. And then this is the branding that was created with all the materials that they gave away at the event. We did these beautiful posters. And put them all over Chicago. I am. Oh, sorry. This is a little video real quick. Do we have audio on this, Chris?
I am somebody.
Yeah, we could hear.
Ironically, the band is called Greater Than One, so it was a perfect fit in every way. This brand we did for Bruce Turkel, which is a very famous speaker on branding. And the brand that we did for them was unique because every audience that he talks to is completely different. So we wanted to develop different personalities for his last name, which is Turkel. So that's what we did with them, with all his promotional pieces. And we previewed this at the Apple store on Michigan Avenue in Chicago a couple of years ago. He then hired us to do this book that he just wrote called Is That All There Is? And this was a really interesting project because it was an opportunity. It was a dual opportunity. The branding was born out of the title, and the title happens to be a palindrome. I don't know if you know what a palindrome is, but This is what a palindrome is. It's, you can see it from the front or the back, it's the same. But I didn't use it because it was a palindrome. I used it because of the title, because of the concept of the meaning that you can only see the full title when you put it next to another book or next to a mirror. Hence, is that all there is? So it was a really interesting exercise. The Schreiker House branding was born out of incredible research. This is a house just north of Chicago in Schaumburg that was designed in the 1930s. And it's an absolutely beautiful house, but their branding was absolutely horrid. And we did all of their new materials from all of the archives that they had. They didn't even know they had it. We did all these research. We found all these beautiful photography and built all this branding around the house. We put together a bunch of pieces that were also framed around the contents of the house. For example, this design here is of the fireplace that's in the living room. This piece is built around all the doors in the house, which are all completely different and all inspired by a trip that he took to Japan. And even the cup that we designed for them is a pattern of the brick pattern in the fireplace in the living room of the house. We do a lot of music work too, and we try to conceptualize the music. This release was a special single by Nyko in LA called I Don't Like This Part of Love. It's about a relationship and they get into an abusive relationship. And because they don't like, the title was I Don't Like This Part of Love, I designed the typography to be in parts. So that graphic approach was born out of the message of the lyrics of the song. Realize was the same. Realize was something that you're not really clear what it is, but the typography execution of it was kind of like, okay, I'm not sure. And then, you finally realize it. And this is some of this is all letterpress, by the way. And then this is just a beautiful way to capture, this is kind of like a chamber music. And we did these beautiful, almost surreal kind of beautifully, colorful releases for Leslie Spencer. And so we try to bring out what we hear and what we feel the music is trying to tell us here. So to conclude, I just basically have this thinking that communication that doesn't take a chance doesn't stand a chance. I spend my entire day working either on Segura Inc., on card type, or T26, which is the type foundry. And I just balance my work back and forth. And basically that's it. I get a little help from my assistant. He's around me all the time. And I'm gonna just nip it in the bud here and open it up for questions. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Carlos. That was a great presentation.
I hope I didn't go too fast.
No, not at all. That was wonderful. So if anyone has any questions, you're more than welcome to drop them in the chat, or you could unmute and ask them directly. But I have one question just right off the bat, Carlos, and all the work that you do is wonderful. It's really great. And I'm very curious about when you're pitching these ideas to your clients and, talking through the work, how do you, very curious about how do you deal with when someone says no, or when someone is just very adamant about, something that you're presenting? How do you deal with that?
Man, there's nothing that any one of us in the business can do or to avoid that struggle. I mean, I have it too. I think for me, the best way is to have just a clear understanding at the beginning of and set as expectations. It's why I have the contract that I have. I don't know if any of you in the audience have seen it, but it's a really good filter. I use it as a filter really, to kind of knock out the undesirables, for lack of a better phrase. But, you know, I got to tell you, I just feel like I am not, God, I'm trying to say this without sounding like an idiot, but I just don't want to do something I don't want to do. And I really, really, really try hard to enter the relationship in a way that we understand what we're going to get out of it. I mean, in many ways, I feel like when someone comes to me, they know they're going to get a little bit of an edgy execution, I guess you could call it. But I just try to stay true to me. But honestly, the real important thing is, I have often told the clients this, and it's not an easy thing to hear, but I tell them, you know, the client, even though they're paying for it, is irrelevant to the picture. What's relevant is the strategy, the target, and the product. And that little triangle is what I try to connect, in addition to the statement that I made at the very beginning, which is I try to develop a personality for their brand, not a personality for their sector. Because eventually they all start looking alike and then nobody's saying anything. So that's my constant struggle. And that's what I really work hard on. I don't always succeed, but I do more often than fail. So at least I try anyway, I think.
Okay, thank you.
But it's definitely not easy. It's not easy.
And by the way,
let me say one more thing. I also do try to put myself in the shoes of the client, because it's a very difficult thing to purchase. Creative is a difficult thing to purchase. It's not like you're buying a physical product, that you go to the grocery store, you stand in front of a shelf, and then you pick the one you want because you're literally looking at it. When you hire a creative service, you don't know what you're getting. And of course, the pressure on the creative side is extreme, because you don't want to let your client down either. You don't have the option of striking out. So it's an incredible amount of pressure on both sides. And I definitely recognize that.
I have a question, actually. Sorry, my camera's broken right now. I can't turn it on, but I was curious, like, a lot of your work, it seems like very, like, you kind of just like, it seems very simple, but it's so clever. And I was wondering, like, how do you stay in this creative space? Like, do you have a daily creative practice? And from the people on your team, like, have you seen any way that they stay in creative spaces that you feel like is really working for them, or any trends and that kind of thing?
You know, that's a fantastic question, and actually a very important one. Well, first of all, let me tell you, I don't have a creative team. It's just me.
Okay.
But I will tell you that I would say I spend 3, 4, 5 hours a day learning or searching or exposing myself to things. I have a great story. I did this amazing project for this company in New York some years ago. We hired, I don't know if you guys know who Hatch Showprint is in Nashville, Tennessee, but they're the letterpress company that it's been in existence for 100+ years. And they did all the Grand Ole Opry posters from the very beginning. And we were the first company to ever book them to do a third-party project, meaning they never printed anything for anyone except Grand Ole Opry. Anyway, we booked them for a weekend because I wanted to letterpress a bunch of posters for this project, the alternative pick in New York. And the minute I got there, the guy who runs the shop, Jim, he embraced me and he goes, "So what kind of music do you like to listen to when you're working?" And I said, "Anything but country." And then he goes, "Perfect, country it is then." It was so amazing because it taught me a lesson. Then he started to put on this amazing original bluegrass music that I had never heard before, and absolutely fell in love, and it taught me a lesson. It really taught me a lesson, and that is to just be a little bit more open-minded and you'll learn something. And I've taken that to heart since then. I mean, I did before, but not to that degree. But to answer your question is, I try to look at things that I like and that I don't like, and I really try to soak in stuff as much as I can. But equally important, I stay away from stuff that pollutes my mind, because there's also a lot of junk on the web. And if you look too much at that stuff, you'll start doing that stuff. So you just got to be really, really careful.
Yeah, that makes a
I
lot of
practice
sense.
a lot. I practice a lot.
Do you find yourself looking at other design for inspiration, or do you try to avoid what other people are doing? Or
No, I guess someone will have to say that looking in, but from me looking out, I don't look at other people. In fact, sometimes it's bit me in the butt because I've done something that someone else has done without, you know what I mean, by accident, because that's just creativity, and we are going to bump into that wall whether we want to or not at some point in our career. But no, I try not to, I don't want to use the word copy, but I try to influence what I put on paper directly from my mind first. I really do a lot of thinking. I appreciate, I don't remember the name of the young lady who asked me this question, but it was very appreciated that you said that it was, I think the word you said was smart. I really, really work hard to not try to talk down to the target or the audience. I don't think people are stupid, and I think people do get it. One of the reasons I left advertising is because I can't tell you how many meetings I was in when some account executive would tell me, after showing them a really interesting idea, well, I get it, but will they? And it just drove me crazy, because I mean, who are you to say that? Why are you smarter than the people we're advertising to? So that's one of the reasons I left and started my own company. It was very frustrating.
Someone in the chat arena asks, how do you get the client to actually show themselves and their personality, especially when they feel the need to do what everyone else in the sector does? How do you push them to understand the base of their brand?
I give every potential client homework before I accept them.
Okay.
And the homework that I give them is, I ask them to send me 10 things they like and 10 things they don't like. And I want them to write their input in writing. I don't want them to tell it to me. I don't want them to voicemail it to me. I don't want them to leave them via text or nothing. I need it in writing. And you'd be amazed how quickly you can get in someone's head by appreciating what they like and what they don't like. And many times what that does is it leads to a conversation as to what they want. And usually they want what someone else has done, or what their competitor is doing, or what's been done before, just because they're comfortable. And sometimes not to their own fault, because I mean, there's a lot of responsibility in the corporate world. You don't want to mess up. You don't want to be the guy they point to and say, well, you told Carlos to do that, and now I don't like it, you know, that kind of thing. So by doing this kind of homework exercise at the beginning, we can kind of like start to massage each other's back, you know, and start feeling better with each other. And it just really works out. So we can eventually agree on at least an initial launch pad for an exploration. So that's how I do it. And it's really worked well for me.
Got it. Oh, that makes sense. So Jeffrey asks in the chat, how do you want to or seek to be moved by a project from a client so that they take you on it, so that they take it on? How do you want to or seek to be moved by a project?
To be honest with you, I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay. Jeffrey, do you want to unmute and ask it directly?
Sure, thank you.
Jeff.
So yeah, thank you, Carlos, for this. So I guess like, because I know you were saying you'd like to say no to certain clients or certain projects. I'm just thinking like, for you to take something on that actually does move you, what is it that, how are you looking to be moved by
Oh,
it?
okay, that's okay. I get it. Thank you, Jeff. Well, first of all, I won't take on a project I don't think I can deliver. So for example, if I got a project tomorrow to do some kind of high-end animation or something, I just won't take it because that's not who I am. I don't believe in taking a project for the money. I take, as I said at the beginning, I have to have an emotional benefit. I have to be happy first. I just have to. But the real reason why I won't take on a project is if I don't think that the client is going to receive what I'm about to put on the table, then I kind of see it as kind of like a blind date. And I think we all suppress this feeling that we all have inside us. You can tell within the first 15 minutes whether something's going to be good or not, either by the amount the client wants to pay you or the kind of deadline that he wants or the kind of work he's asking. You just know, in your heart, but most of us take it because we have to make a living, and I get that too. I was there. But I think some of the things that define what I know I want to do are open-mindedness, the willingness to take a chance, the ability for the client to express that he's going to let me do what he hired me to do, and the ability to implement the project. Because I mean, there's been many projects that I've done where they just don't have the budget to do it. I mean, in some ways it's pretty easy to create some crazy stuff, but you also have to be vigilant of the budget that's on the table because you want to be able to produce what you're going to come up with. In some cases, what I have found is I will have a client that asks me for something, and I know that I have something better. I'll show them what they're asking for, but only if I think it's a good option. But then I'll also show them something that I want them to do. And what always happens is if they like it better, they'll always find the money to produce it. And I've always believed that it is our job to show them what's inside our head, because there's no way that they can see something you don't show them, right? So once you show a client something that's beautiful and exciting and gets them pumped up, they'll find a way to produce it. So I try to kind of push them. I'm always pushing. It's one of the reasons why on my business cards it says I'm difficult to work with. And it's funny because all these comments, all these lines on my business cards, they're really meant in a loving way, even though sometimes they don't come off that way. But I mean, I'm difficult to work with because I care. I really do care deeply, deeply about what comes out of my brain onto the client's lap. And I see the importance of that relationship important to me, but I also see it as important to them. So I give it my all. And there isn't a single project where I haven't gone above the call of duty, meaning that I always show more than I'm paid for or hired for, because I want them to know that I'm on their team, and I'm there to help them.
I saw one thing in the chat. Myra Nolan asked a question, like, as a matter of like diversity and representation, like, how do you talk with clients when they need to include like everyone and including people of color? Like, is this a conversation that you have to have, and has that been like a difficult conversation before?
It's funny, I haven't really had that conversation. I think maybe because I hope that I'm inclusive in the work that I do. The only project that I really had that conversation with of late, I just finished this project for a doctor here in Florida. It's on my website, VHW. Mm-hmm. And he did ask me to add a little bit more inclusiveness in the imagery, which, to be honest with you, I failed to see. Initially, he helped me see that. But in general, I really don't have that conversation. I have to say, maybe it's because most of my work is really more graphic. Maybe, I don't know. You know, I don't really know. But I think I do. I mean, I think I do. You know, I try. I certainly don't make a conscious effort to not do it. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But thanks for the question, though.
And I have a question. So given like you've been doing design for quite some time, like what are some of the, like today, present states, what are some of the things that you really like about our industry, and like what are some of the things that you perhaps don't, you know, like so much? Just curious to hear your opinion about design and where it stands today.
Well, as you can imagine, I'm a bit of an old fart here, so I've seen a lot of things go down in our industry. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, I mean, it was like the 60s in the advertising world. It was just amazing, the stuff that we would be doing. But one of the things that I've never liked out about our industry is this working till you know, midnight crap, and you know, giving you ridiculous deadlines and ridiculous timeframes, and demanding free spec work. I absolutely despise it. It's just ridiculous. It's an insult to us as humans to be able to devalue something like that. There isn't another craft in the world that does that, and we seem to be okay with it, and I just don't like it.
Got it. Yeah, it seems like, especially today, I keep seeing more of like emphasis on work-life balance, and just,
Yeah.
it's just been a bigger conversation, especially these past 2 years.
I mean, I have a couple of friends that I know that they can't eat, they're not even allowed to go take lunch. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Got it.
I was sharing an image today with my wife of this agency in Japan that has chairs in front of their desks that actually slide under the desk and turn into cots so they can take naps.
Interesting.
It's obscene.
Yeah. Interesting. And then this is a question that I typically like asking our guests, but specifically in Chicago, like what's something that you think the Chicago design community needs more of, or just what's your take on Chicago and where it stands right now, design wise?
I think Chicago in general has gone too conservative, if I may be honest. There's some really great shops doing some great stuff. There aren't as many as there were in the, I want to say, the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s. You know, for example, when my buddy Chris Valiceni had Thirst, I mean, that was just such an incredible vibe in Chicago. And there were a lot of shops like that were just experimenting. But I'm not entirely sure that I can put it on the shoulders of Chicago alone. I think our industry in general has gotten conservative to some degree, although there are pockets, there are markets around the world that are just killing it. Barcelona is one of them. Thailand is another. There's a lot of shops in America, of course, that are doing some great stuff. In Korea, but man, the stuff that I see locally in Chicago, I think we should try harder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because one of the reasons why this group started in particular is so that we could have more of these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always just very curious to learn, like as a club, like just how could we better serve like our design community? That's just like a running question that we're always thinking about.
I mean, I wonder if it's because Chicago is kind of like a packaged goods town, or at least it's been known for that from day one, with all the ad agencies and stuff. I tend to think that Chicago is more of an advertising community than a design firm community.
Mhm.
I could be wrong. I don't know. That's just the vibe that I get.
Okay. Let me see if there's any other questions that we missed. Yeah, Cheryl, she had a question like who was your first big breakthrough clients and how did that come to be? I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, that depends on how far back you want to go, because I mean, there's a lot of monumentary moments that literally changed my life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a tricky question, but I would say that one of my key forks in the road, I guess I could say, is when I was growing up well, first of all, I was a drummer. I never went to school. I don't even know, I don't know anything about graphic design. I never took a class. I was a drummer until I was 21 years old, and that's what I was going to be my whole life.
Mhm.
And so I got into the advertising agency business by accident. It's a very, very long story, which we can talk about another time. I touch on it on the future podcast, which is very interesting. But anyway, the key moment for me was getting an opportunity to get out of the life that I was leading in Miami when I was younger. It was kind of it was a little violent here in the late 70s, early 80s. And I escaped and got this job. And the guy who hired me basically had no interest in supervising me. So he said, there's your office, do whatever you want. And of course, I took it to heart and I did exactly that. And so in 9 months, me and a writer friend he hooked me up with, he looked like ZZ Top with this incredibly long beard. It was amazing. What a great guy. So anyway, we won all these kinds of awards, and this agencies in Chicago saw it. Adweek did a story on it, and I lived in New Orleans at the time. And they offered me a job and brought me to Chicago in 1980. And that was an incredible fork in the road for me, despite the fact that I had no idea what advertising was or what an advertising agency was, but I still got a job. It's amazing. It's a miracle, absolute miracle. And from that day on, I became known as the print guy because I just absolutely love print. And back in that time, most ad agencies and art directors certainly wanted to do broadcast because back then the thing was to do TV commercials. And back then TV commercials were 60 seconds long. And nobody wanted to do print. So I did print. So I got known as that guy. And that was my thing. So that's how I made it.
And I remember listening to in the interview with Chris Doe, you mentioned that you used to do the flyers for your band.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really enjoyed that you did is you used to find like the most interesting verses from the Bible.
Yeah. Instead of signing back then I had 3 jobs when I was in the band. I was the drummer, the truck driver, and the guy telling people we were playing. That's all I thought I was doing. But I, in fact, was doing graphic design.
Mhm.
And I was doing these posters. They call them, rave cards now, I guess.
Yeah.
And instead of signing my name, even though I'm not religious, I took the weirdest phrases from the Bible and signed them with that. And I got known for that.
Yeah.
So it was just an interesting twist. It's really cool.
Do you still have any of those archives? Or
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I actually have them right behind me.
Because I see your Clockwork album right there, right behind.
That was the first thing I ever designed.
Yeah, and I've seen your photograph in the back of you with the cigarette.
Yeah. I know you guys aren't going to know what this is, but this is an 8-track tape.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
This was the first concept that I did.
Yeah.
This is Clockwork. This is the band. We had a lead singer was a woman, and this is the crowd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I like the back too, the photograph of never seen you like that.
Like that?
Yes.
It's so sad. It's embarrassing.
Awesome. Yeah, well, this was super great. And it's just nice to just finally be having this conversation like with other people. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, man. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for everyone for coming. That was really sweet of you to show up.
Yeah. Does anyone have any other questions before we close off?
Just wanted to say this was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please visit the website, follow me on Instagram, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And do listen to that podcast with Chris Do. I'll say one more thing about that. When he recorded my podcast, after we were done, I just wasn't clear on how I sounded. And one of the things that my wife has taught me, and I do this in every meeting, which would help each of us. I find that I sound different when I speak and when I hear myself. So
Mhm.
she said, I think you should record every meeting and then listen to yourself. Because after a meeting, she would say, oh, you said this, or you sounded a little, upset, or you had the wrong tone here. And I would think to myself, but I didn't feel that. I don't know why you're seeing that when I didn't feel it. But then I would go, in fact, and listen to the recording, and it was absolutely right. And so I learned from these recordings. But the reason I'm telling you this is because after I did the recording with Chris Do, I sent him an email. I said, man, I'm begging you, please let me hear this before you post it. I want to make sure I didn't sound like an idiot. And his response was, trust me, man, I was in the room and you didn't sound like an idiot, but I'll send it to you anyway. Anyway, he sent it to me and I listened to it. And I responded to him, please don't change a thing. It's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And it's perfect in my mind because it was very humane. We talked about my mom, we talked about his mom, we talked about the struggles of growing up as immigrants in this country, and just the whole thing, just life stuff. And I don't know, I really felt good about it. I'm kind of proud of it. So I hope you guys take a listen.
Yeah, I put a link to it in the chat here, so people should be able to click there directly. And I guess I have one last question, but I'm very curious. So given that you are a one-man shop, how do you take on various clients at once, or how do you go about just managing projects, like the logistics of all that stuff?
Yeah, I do. The other thing that I have found about myself, well, long ago, was that I can't be on one thing all the time. I need several dishes to be eating from. You know what I mean? I just can't. I need distraction, even if it's like I got to stop and go cut the grass, or clean the toilet, or whatever it is. I can't sit in front of a computer all the time, which is why I make a horrible employee. But I take on as much as I feel I can take. And if I feel like I'm overwhelmed, I just turn the job down.
Yeah, that's always something I struggle with, is like, just learning like what my boundaries are and like what my limits are, because it's very easy to get excited and say yes to everything, and then you're like,
well, not only that, honestly, let's be real. We're pretty fortunate to have this career, and the money that people pay us to do what we do is almost embarrassing. So when someone calls you and say, I want to give you so many dollars to do this ridiculous little logo or whatever, you want to do it, right? Not only because of the opportunity, but also, the money's good. So it's hard to turn this stuff down. But you really gotta chill, because before you know it, you'll be, 60, 65, 70, and then you're going to think, oh shit, what the hell did I do in my life? So I don't know. I just feel like I'm thinking that way more and more as I get older, because time is fleeting.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Well, thank you so
Sorry,
much,
yeah.
Carlos.
yeah. Sorry for all.
No, this was great. I hope we could do something in person soon. It'd be nice to get together sometime with the group.
Yeah, I would love to. I get back to Chicago in 2 weeks.
Okay, perfect.
So whenever you guys want to do something, or if you want me to do another one of these, I can cover something else, or maybe go on a deep dive on a specific project or something, whatever you guys want to do.
Okay, awesome. Cool.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much, Carlos, and thanks everyone for joining us. This was.
Thank you so much, guys. I don't know who came and who didn't come, but whoever, and I don't see any faces.
I
but,
think you're still sharing your screen, but we could see you.
Oh, here, hold on. Let me stop sharing. There we go.
So
Okay.
there, you should be able to maybe see people now.
I see a few people.
Yeah.
I see Mira. I see Erna,
Mara.
Jeff. See who else? Who else is here? Hey, Jamie, John. Let's see who we got. Lugo, Patrick. Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You did wonderful.
Thank you.
Beautiful work. Beautiful work.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
We'll stay in touch.
Thanks.
Bye.